At the end of Fallout Season 2, Hank says 5 words that have haunted my soul ever since. The surface is the experiment. Not because of whatever Enclave shenanigans are afoot, but because of another spine-chilling implication. That it was Lucy's life in the vault that was real. How could that possibly be true? And what greater themes of the human experience is that idea pointing to?
The surface is the experiment, not the vaults.
Y'all, this has messed me up for months. I'm like up awake at night going, the surface is the experiment, the surface is the experiment, the surface is the experiment. My stream has got to be sick of hearing me talk about this by now. I finally did it, y'all. We're talking about it. The surface is the experiment. Let's go. Regardless of whatever the Enclave is doing with Robbie's mind blowers up there on the surface, why would Hank be under the impression that whatever was going on in the vault was more real, and that Lucy would somehow be safer down there? We don't know what Phase 2 is yet, but we do know that things didn't go well for Vault 32, and we know that FEV is involved, which is not a good time. But before I jump too far ahead, let's recap what happened that last scene of Season 2 and get everybody on the same page. So Lucy's now confronting the fact that her dad is really dangerous. We see that Hank now has one of Robbie's mind blowers in the back of his neck, and she's got the remote in one hand, and she's got a gun in the other, and she's got to neutralize him. Is she gonna wipe his mind, or is she gonna take him out? And of course she can't take out her own dad, so she's like, I'm gonna wipe ya. And Hank is now grappling with the fact that he doesn't have control of the situation anymore. He couldn't get her on board willingly, and he couldn't overpower her thanks to intervention from the ghoul, so he's conceding. The jig is up. Then Lucy calls him out for lying to her whole life. Then he drops the bomb, so to speak. I see how you feel that way. You think this is the real world. But the surface is the experiment, and then he proceeds to explain there are already agents across the wasteland, equipped with automated men with Robbie's mind blowers, carrying out orders centuries old. He wanted to protect her from this, but now that he's lost control of the situation, the least he can do is warn her and relieve her of the guilt of taking him down, so he hits the button on himself. He's now a domesticated puppy. There's hugging, there's crying, the feelsies are realsies, and now she's gonna have to decide what to do with this burden of information. So first, let's address how simplistic it was for us to ever assume there was a fake world and a real world, that it was just a binary like that. There have been tons of great sci-fi stories, great TV show episodes, exploring the idea of waking up from a dream only to find that you're in another dream. The example that always immediately leaps to mind for me is The X-Files, Season 6, Episode 21, back when seasons were that long. The episode's called Field Trip. There's like this plant, like an underground fungus that digests people and makes them share a vivid, shared hallucination. And there's a fake out that came way too easy, where they think, oh, we escaped, and then things afterwards don't really make sense, and they go, oh, maybe we didn't actually escape after all.
Scully, we never escaped. We're still trapped underground.
Star Trek Next Generation fans might remember Season 6, Episode 12, Ship in a Bottle. Data had a holodeck program of Sherlock Holmes that made Moriarty so smart that he became sentient, and then insisted upon escaping the holodeck. So they ended up having to make a simulation that made him believe that he escaped, but he never actually did. Pretty freaking creepy ending to that episode.
This enhancement module contains enough active memory to provide them with experiences for a lifetime.
Who knows? Our reality may be very much like theirs, and all this might just be an elaborate simulation running inside a little device sitting on someone's table.
And it's worth mentioning one of the most popular fan theories about Fallout 76, that the whole game is a simulation, like Tranquility Lane in Fallout 3, which I strongly believe should have been the concept from the very beginning, but that's a tangent. And there are plenty more examples. By all means, if you can think of more, share them in the comments. These stories aren't just popular and recurring because they're interesting thought experiments. They mirror an experience that a lot of people have in the real world every day. An experience many of you probably have had. As all of us grow up, we have this experience of our consciousness, our understanding of our reality expanding. First, our mother's womb is the entire universe, and then the room that we're in is the entire universe. Then our family is the entire universe. Then our street, then our town, so on and so forth. There's generally not just one coming out of the vault experience in life, and there's a reason why in every Fallout game, it's always treated as this big deal. When you come out of the vault, there's this burst of light and there's music, and it's like, oh my god, the world is so much bigger now than I thought it was. And every time you step out, it always feels like, okay, now I'm in the real world. Until you hit the wall. That Truman Show moment. When you hit the backdrop and realize you were just in another cage. And I don't know about y'all, but whenever I hit those moments, all I want to do is turn around to everybody else and go, oh my god, we're in a cage! It always makes me think of that John Mayer song. I know he made some really bad public relations mistakes. You may remember the song No Such Thing. The lyrics go, I want to run through the halls of my high school. I want to scream at the top of my lungs. I just found out there's no such thing as the real world. It's a lie you've got to rise above. But you can't. You can't convince other people to come with you. You have to let them go. You have to let them figure it out. Because concerning yourselves with their limited awareness only drags you down anyway. They have to choose it themselves. There's only one situation where it's really your business and your duty and your responsibility to warn somebody, to prepare somebody for that next level of expansion. And that is the responsibility of a parent to their child. And this came up in a discussion on my stream once, the question of, is Hank a good father? And I took a break for a little bit and pondered it and came to the conclusion of no, because of his failure to do that. Anybody who's really well versed in like history or even like archaeology or sociology could probably speak on this better than me. I'm speaking on just recent history, but it seems to me a huge failure of the way that we parent in the modern world is that it's too common for parents not to want their kids to outgrow them, even though that's an inevitability, because the consciousness of the entire human race is expanding. Parents all too often want to keep their kids' consciousness contained into their understanding of the quote-unquote real world. And this is disastrous because you have every generation feeling like they're betraying their parents just by evolving. And in more extreme cases, where the parent's worldview is even smaller than the global collective consciousness, then they prepare their kid so poorly for the quote-unquote real world that the kid can't survive the real world and has to come home. I mean, how many stories have you heard, if not you personally, where somebody went out into the real world and fell on their ass and just had to keep coming home or living with their parents all the way into their 30s, their 40s, indefinitely, because they don't have the tools to survive anything but their parents. Their parents raised them to live in their tiny world, not the world outside. And that's what you see happening here with Lucy and Hank. Lucy is adapting to the wasteland. Lucy is becoming a different animal altogether, but Hank's like, no, get back in the vault where it's safe. That's the real world. In other videos, I've already talked at great length about how Lucy's idea of what goodness is tied way too closely to obedience. That's the way that we were educated, most of us. Divergent thinking is seen as defiant thinking. They teach us obedience and compliance, but they call it hard work. They call it discipline. If you do what we want instead of what you want, you're a better person for it. And it's kind of a shame because discipline is important, hard work is important, but so many of us tie that so closely to that obedience training that we end up embracing nihilism. We don't have any patience for long-term goals anymore because we associate that kind of discipline and hard work with pursuing long-term goals for their desires, for their needs, for their goals for us, not for our own goals. But then there's those among us who figured out the alternative early on. There's even a great joke pointing to this in the movie Clueless.
Some teachers were trying to lowball me, Daddy. So I figure these grades are just a jumping off point to start negotiations.
Very good.
While we were being obedient and disciplined and doing our homework, other kids were hacking the game and manipulating the teachers.
What'd you do, turn in some extra credit reports?
No.
You mean to tell me that you argued your way from a C+ to an A-?
Totally based on my powers of persuasion. You proud?
Honey, I couldn't be happier than if they were based on real grades.
Going back to Star Trek, another example, the famous Kobayashi Maru. In the Star Trek universe, this is a test that's given to Starfleet Academy students, and the purpose is to see how you handle it in a no-win scenario. The test was specifically constructed so that there was no actual way to pass, which in some ways is a really important lesson. There are some situations in life where you can't win, but famously Kirk was like, screw that, I don't believe in no-win scenarios, and he cheated on this test.
I reprogrammed the simulation so it was possible to rescue the ship.
He cheated.
Changed the conditions of the test.
Then you never faced that situation.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
This is a defining backstory for Kirk as a character. He is notorious for breaking the rules as he sees fit. And I carry a little bit of this in me when it comes to how I play games too, because I don't really play games, I explore games. I'm not good at video games. If you've watched me stream, I console command, I cheat the whole way through. And I bet some of you are triggered hearing me say that, right? Because you get good, right? You work so hard and practice, and you're really good at the shooting and the jumping and the finding your way around, and you're like, how dare you? I'm following these rules, and you cheating takes the value out of how good I am at getting good. But if you feel that way, hopefully this calms you down. What you gotta understand is I'm playing a different game than you. I God mode my way through these games because I'm planting saves, I'm organizing save files at different points, I'm exploring different options when you make different choices, and I'm preparing to record footage for videos. The game that I'm getting good at is being prepared to make videos. That is divergent thinking. That's striking your nervous system as defiant thinking. And oh my god, do I wish that I could figure out how to apply that kind of thinking to making money somehow. I just have not hacked that. There's no console commands for making money that I'm comfortable with. I'm still working hourly and doing labor for cash. I haven't figured out how to work around that programming yet, but if I could, I would. Funky Deathclaw reminding you to like and subscribe, like and subscribe. And once you realize that there are these spheres of consciousness and that each of these spheres has its set of rules, every time you step outside of those rules and you start seeing it as divergent thinking instead of as defiant thinking, then you have power and advantage over everyone who is in the smaller level of consciousness that's deeper into the nesting doll. And that's sort of an inevitability. I keep coming back to this nesting doll idea to make it clear that this isn't a binary. It's not any more binary than hot and cold. Just because hot is one direction and cold is another direction doesn't mean there aren't other temperatures in the middle. But it's important to face the fact that the more that you expand and the more awareness you have, the more inevitably aware you become of how unaware all these other people are, and it makes you feel kind of evil at first. It makes you feel judgmental. You don't want to see yourself as above these people, but it's only evil if you use that expanded awareness to control these people, to manipulate them. Like, if you ever heard of They Live, one of my favorite movies ever, the full quote or line in the movie is, "They live, we sleep." People in the lower levels, the smaller point of view of consciousness, are asleep compared to the people with the expanded point of view. You're more awake than the people who are asleep. You're zooming out and seeing how the whole thing fits together. Woke. And the more you expand, the more you inevitably see that further expansion is possible, and that humbles you. If I was that dumb before, how dumb am I now? Let's find out. And it's humiliating. It's humiliating. Every stage, the previous stage becomes humiliating. It's humiliating to get to the end of The Wizard of Oz and have Glinda go, "All you had to do was tap your heels together 3 times. Really?
You don't need to be helped any longer. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas.
How would she have possibly guessed that? How could she have possibly guessed that tapping her heels together 3 times was in any way connected to the concept of going home? That's why Glinda says, "If I told you, you wouldn't have believed me," because it sounds ridiculous. But be prepared. Every step of life, you're inevitably going to find that a lot of the time, the answer, the way out, was right next to you the whole time. And the reason that you didn't see it is because the people educating you wanted you to stay in a certain level of quote-unquote real. They want us to believe that consciousness doesn't go any wider. They don't want you using console commands. They don't want you cheating on the Kobayashi Maru. They want to keep you where they can see you. And the biggest lie that they tell us to keep us contained in that nesting doll is that you have complete control of your destiny in this bubble.
I come from a place where the world is what you make of it.
No, everybody outside of the bubble has control over you. Sorry. Like the ghoul said, you look out there, it looks like chaos, but there's always somebody behind the wheel. But the people who are on that outside, controlling everybody on the inside, are really better off continuing to expand, continuing to learn, continuing to get a better perspective. Like I said, they're dragging themselves down by concerning themselves by what's going on in the smaller circles. They feel enslaved by the people that won't comply. I touched on this when I was talking about Stephanie and how the path that she's on doesn't go anywhere. She's scoffing and rolling her eyes because of the silly, childish needs of Davy, who's like, everything's backwards here. That's what happens when these people are like, oh my god, why won't these animals just get back in their pen? And even if they decided that managing us was just too exhausting and they just nuked us all, which they could, never forget that, you are only alive because someone has decided to let you live, they would inevitably just end up fighting amongst themselves. They would stratify themselves. The pathway of controlling the plebs goes nowhere. It's better to have patience and compassion. And Hank is an example of this mistake, where he got to a certain level of awareness and he looked down instead of up. And while I do think that he wiped himself to relieve Lucy of having the guilt of doing so, I think another big part of it is that he didn't know how to cope with that awareness if he wasn't controlling it. But from his perspective, he couldn't wake Lucy up, so he's just like, I give up. He was experiencing a kind of cosmic horror, seeing that the forces that have control over people don't care about them. This is why it's so important at every level of awareness, at every level of expansion, to remember that just because you've expanded to a certain point doesn't mean you're done expanding. You can't possibly know that you've reached the top. You can't possibly know that you aren't still being digested, that you aren't still in the holodeck. And this is some crazy stuff. Do you see why it took me so long to talk about this? Do you see why I was losing sleep? And unfortunately, awareness isn't the only nesting doll. There's also power, privilege, access. It's pretty maddening to see the construction that you're in, but to not have enough power, privilege, and access in that construction to do anything about it.
I'm not exactly clear on how we escaped. Once you recognized that we were under a chemical influence, then it simply broke its spell.
I could talk about this shit all day long and I'll still be broke.
Scully, how could we simply will ourselves out of a chemical hallucination? Can you name me one drug that loses its effect once the user realizes it's in a system?
But the only way I'm gonna ever figure out how to not be broke is to expand and escape the level of my nesting doll of awareness that's limiting my understanding of how to be not broke. Is this too esoteric? Are you coming with me on this? So what do we do? What do we do once we face that the surface is the experiment, that we're still being digested, that we're still in the holodeck, but we can't find our way out? And we can't use Robbie's mind blowers and hit a button to escape the cognitive dissonance of that. That is when we must turn to the meat sock, the vessel, the body, the nervous system. Understand your nervous system and the signals that it is sending to your consciousness as much as you possibly can. That is your radio transmitter receiver. And right now it's tuned to the wrong frequency. We're following bad programming. And it will reveal to you your programming if you choose to listen. We have talked a lot about programming on this channel, and the concept of the Robbie's Mindblower device is a metaphor, a beautiful one, for the ways in which we all are agents of obedience, disguised as goodness and hard work and discipline, carrying out orders for somebody else to serve their needs, and not ours. And it's very tricky business, because we feel pain both when we are being harmed and when our overlords are being harmed. Like, remember when I talked about when Maximus pointed the gun at Quintus, it felt to him like he was pointing it to his own head, because his nervous system, his self-preservation system, was calibrated to serve the Brotherhood of Steel more than himself. Always remember that pain is not only telling you what to avoid or what to fight and what to push away. It is primarily there to draw your attention to whatever hurts. Examine pain. You've probably heard the Carl Jung idea, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I've got a little updated remix of that idea. Until you understand how your nervous system works, manipulators will use it to direct your life and you'll call it your personality. Like, remember when Hank got Lucy to hit the mind blowers button? Because he orchestrated the surrounding scenario so that the most ethical, moral, and good choice that she had available to her in that moment proved his point. That's what they do. So what's the new program? What frequency do we tune to instead? Now we're learning about our nervous system and getting more attuned when our body is collecting the data from the experiment, so we're more aware and have a fighting chance, but we still haven't reached escape velocity. We're still not expanding. We're still broke. What do we do? First of all, take a deep breath and accept that this is forever. This is it. This is it. It's gonna be like this forever. Expansion doesn't stop. I mean, I don't know, maybe you want to achieve enlightenment, but I don't know. That sounds pretty boring to me. I like doing stuff. There's no tippy top point where you feel like you finally have control over everything and you don't want it. That's why narcissists, people like Stephanie, are insatiable. The answer isn't to have all of the control, it is to accept that you'll never have it. The objective truth will always be outside your grasp. The way that you hang on to the truth is to find pockets of truth, pockets of love inside whatever layer of the nesting doll you're in. And that's how we start winding back down to the idea that the vault was more real than the surface. Took us a while, but we got there. Connection. You're gonna need friends. Mulder and Scully couldn't will themselves out of the field trip. Dorothy was never gonna think of tapping her heels together on her own, and Moriarty's genius scheming only guaranteed his captivity. It sounds so cheesy, but love really is the only way out. Earlier I mentioned They Live, I also mentioned The Truman Show, and a modern movie that I personally think is really underrated. It's called Free Guy. Remember that? Ryan Reynolds? It was about a video game NPC developing consciousness, developing sentience. If you want to call the movie derivative, I would agree, but it's also a remix of all my favorite movies. It's got some Truman Show, it's got some They Live. They even have sunglasses, the sunglasses people who see the truth, who see the construction, who have the wider consciousness, right? But there's a really powerful scene, a really powerful idea that's addressed in that movie, and it is so pivotal, so perfect for the point I'm trying to make here. Okay, so once Guy faces the fact that he is a video game NPC, that he's not real. First, he does what I talked about, right? He wanted to run through the halls of his high school screaming at the top of his lungs. He just runs around to everybody going, none of this is real, none of this matters, He's doing that thing, he's looking back, trying to get people to come with him, not wanting to feel alone with this realization. And then he goes to his NPC buddy's house and has this talk with him about how none of this is real, how it's all pointless. If I'm not real, if we're not real, then none of this matters. And his friend is like, but this moment is real.
Brother, I am sitting here with my best friend trying to help him get through a tough time. Even if I'm not real, this moment is real. I mean, what's more real than a person trying to help someone they love? Now, if that's not real, I don't know what is.
What's more real than a person trying to help someone they love? Bam, there it is. Experience is real, shared experience is real, love is real, and love exists at every level of the nesting doll. I know this is gonna raise a lot of questions because of the Disney Frozen song, but love is an open door. And sure, the more your consciousness expands, the broader and more open that door becomes, but there's still little doors tucked away and hidden in the construction. In fact, when you're really young, when you're really small, your perception is so small that those little doors are actually bigger proportionally. And the best way to sell that idea to you is with nostalgia. A lot of us have really fond memories of the things that we loved as kids because we didn't have to pay bills yet, we didn't have to deal with taxes, and we could devote a lot more of our energy to our joys. There's a lot more room to explore, there's a lot more room to expand within the confines of what our families and our socioeconomic status could give us access to. You could listen to a pop song and just let it wash over you without thinking about all the shadiness and exploitation going on in the pop music industry, whatever socially irresponsible decisions the singer had made, like John Mayer, for instance. I was thinking about this recently because there's this song that I've been working on. If you've been to my stream, you may have heard the work in progress. The song's called I'm Gonna Be Okay, and it is strongly influenced by, and it's kind of a spiritual sequel to the song So Yesterday by Hilary Duff. And now I know that it was a highly produced commercial track given to a Nickelodeon pop star, and it was specifically designed to stimulate the dopamine of teenage girls such as myself. But I wasn't thinking about that when I would listen to the song when it came on MTV every morning when I was getting ready for school. I strongly associate it with my youth, with teenage girl empowerment and that kind of thing. The point is, the song was fake. The motivations for its existence were commercial. School was kind of fake. My house was kind of fake. I was kind of fake. The ego that I was constructing to survive school and my home was fake. But the experience and the memory that I have of that song was real, just like that Free Guy conversation. And the impact that it had on me that years later inspired me to write this song is very real. And all of us who are aware of these cultural realities, you know, we see these movie sequels coming out. We see Minecraft movie and the Mario movie, and while we're all whining and complaining about how exploitative and resource extracting, placating, numbing distractions from the clusterfuck of our current socio-political reality, all of these pieces of pop culture are, there is a child, an 8-year-old, who is watching Mario and Minecraft, and bonding and playing and being creative with their friends, sharing this experience of this movie, and someday they're gonna look back at this time in a warm, fuzzy, fond way, because they haven't been tainted, their hearts haven't been corrupted by the experiment yet. And of course I have to mention Fallout fandom, this very channel. The wasteland is imaginary, and the capitalist corporate bullshit behind the franchise is even faker. But the truth, what's real, is in, you guessed it, the friends we made along the way. This is why social media is so addictive and why we can't let it go, despite the fact that we all know that we're being manipulated by algorithms. Unless you've been following me for a while and you're one of my feral cools that comes to the stream, chances are a soulless, heartless robot connected you to this video and therefore to me. And that robot has an agenda that doesn't give a shit about you or me. I am a vehicle to farm attention from your eyeballs to increase the value of this platform to advertisers. We're in the experiment. We're in a vault. But I'm real, the stuff that I'm saying is real, and you're real over there listening to the real things I'm saying. You and I are really connecting right now, just like the Free Guy conversation.
This moment is real.
This is real as it gets!
And that matters. The moral of the story is, we're gonna get through this if we focus a little bit less on whether the external world is real, and focus on the internal world that is absolutely real, that we can share with each other. John Mayer was right, there's no such thing as the real world, but there is absolutely such thing as a shared world. We're in this together, and civilization, society is still in the process of sort of reforming and figuring out what this should be. Because this is created by humanity. It's a construction. It's not God. It's not nature. We live in a man-made world that's in a natural world, but most of the time when we're complaining about the real world or telling our kids that they need to prepare for the real world, we're not talking about physics. We're not talking about gravity and sunlight and Newtonian limitations. We're talking about money. And if you play Fallout, you know that pre-war money is just gonna be cloth one day. And recognizing that all of that isn't real is only a cosmic horror nightmare if you don't opt in to what is real. And life is more rewarding and fulfilling if you tune your nervous system, if you calibrate your nervous system to shared reality, to the shared world, as opposed to the real world. And love isn't something that you earn, it's something that you opt into. And unfortunately, the forces that have manipulated and trained our nervous system aren't opted into that. And until love gathers enough strength to reach escape velocity from those forces, from the experiment that is on the surface, we have to just find it wherever we can. Even if it's the Minecraft movie. And trust love, trust the experience, trust each other more than the experiment.
This quote is real!
Community section for the feral cools. So that was it. I did it. That was the video. I was really self-conscious about this one. I hope that made sense. That was some abstract shit. There will not be a stream on Saturday because I will be at Wasteland Jamboree hawking wares with Atlas Omnicorp. If you are there, please come by. I will geek out if you tell me that you saw this video. So the next stream will be Saturday, May 9th. I feel like I'm on the cusp of some sort of revolution with my content, not even just this channel, but otherwise. I was talking about it a lot on my last stream. I'm really receptive to ideas right now, feedback, even just sharing with me the things that you like the most about these videos would be helpful. On stream I was talking about this. I really want to make sure that I'm providing value. I feel like I've done a really good job of being authentic, expressing the things that I want to express, talking about Fallout the way that I want to talk about it, but I kind of feel like I'm on the edge of one of these nesting doll expansions, but I don't know what's on the other side of it quite yet. So far, the only thing I've really pinned down is wanting to feel more connected expected. More interactivity. Like, I don't want to just talk at you guys. I'm really interested in things like trivia and the icebreaker questions that I do on the stream. Like, I'm feeling lonely up here in my dinosaur. I want to know what inspires you. So if you have anything you'd like to share to kind of help guide where this is going, I'd love to hear from you. So on that note, stay cool, ferals.